Jiho wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the maintenance tablet in his hand. The ship's blueprint glowed on the screen, showing a maze of corridors and rooms. He was lost. Again. The Harmony Dawn was the biggest ship he had ever worked on. It was a diplomatic vessel, carrying representatives from 12 different alien species. They were all here to negotiate some important trade agreement. Jiho didn't care much about politics. He was just a maintenance engineer, fixing broken things and keeping the air flowing through the vents. Today's job was simple. Check the ventilation system in the alien quarters. Simple. Except the alien quarters looked exactly the same as every other part of the ship. White walls, soft blue lights, and doors that all looked identical. Jiho checked his tablet again. He was supposed to be in Corridor 7, Section D, but somehow he had ended up in Corridor 9, Section F. He sighed and turned left, hoping to find his way back. The corridors were quiet. Most of the diplomats were in meetings. Jiho liked it this way. He could work without anyone bothering him. He walked past several doors, each one marked with strange symbols he couldn't read. Alien languages. The ship had 12 different species on board, and each one had their own writing system. He stopped at a door that looked slightly different from the others. The access panel next to it was blinking green instead of the usual amber. That was odd. Green usually meant unlocked, but all the alien quarters were supposed to be locked when the occupants were away. Jiho hesitated. Maybe someone forgot to lock it. Or maybe the lock was broken. He should probably report it. But his supervisor would ask why he was in the wrong corridor in the first place. He made a decision. He would just check quickly. If the room was empty, he would lock it properly and move on. No one would know. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Jiho stepped inside and immediately knew this wasn't a maintenance access point. This was someone's personal chamber. The room was dimly lit with soft purple lights that reminded him of twilight. Strange furniture filled the space, elegant and curved in ways that seemed impossible. The air smelled like rain and something sweet he couldn't identify. But that wasn't what made him freeze. On the wall directly in front of him, among dozens of papers and documents, was a photograph. Of him, Jiho's heart started pounding. He stepped closer, thinking maybe he was wrong. Maybe it just looked like him. But no, it was definitely him. The photo showed him in his graduation uniform, standing in front of the engineering academy on Earth. He remembered that day. It was 3 years ago. His mother had taken that picture. What was his photo doing here? On an alien's wall? Jiho looked around the room more carefully now. The walls were covered with documents. Some were written in languages he recognized, others in scripts that looked like art more than writing. There were star charts, technical diagrams, and more photographs, not just of him. Other humans, too. People he didn't recognize. His photo had notes attached to it. The writing was in an alien language, but he could see dates, numbers, calculations. It looked like research notes. Someone had been studying him. For years. The door hissed behind him. Jiho spun around, his heart jumping into his throat. A woman stood in the doorway. At least she looked like a woman. She was tall and slender, with skin that seemed to glow faintly in the purple light. Her hair was long and silver, floating slightly as if underwater. Her eyes were completely black, without any white at all. She was Valerian. Jiho had seen Valerians before on the ship, but always from a distance. They were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The woman stared at him. Her expression was usually calm and controlled. That's what Valerians were known for. But right now she looked shocked. Her black eyes were wide and her mouth was slightly open. "You," she said softly. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes. "I'm sorry," Jiho said quickly, raising his hands. The door was open. "I thought it was a maintenance access. I didn't mean to. You shouldn't be here." The woman stepped into the room. The door closed behind her. She wasn't threatening, but Jiho felt trapped anyway. "I know. I'm really sorry. I'll leave right now." Jiho moved toward the door, but the woman moved too, blocking his path. "Wait." She looked at the wall where his photo hung, then back at him. Something like fear crossed her face. "You saw what?" Jiho tried to play dumb, but his eyes betrayed him. They flicked to the photograph. The woman pressed her lips together. She seemed to be thinking very hard, very fast. Finally, she stepped aside. "Go," she said. Forget what you saw here. For your own safety. Jiho didn't need to be told twice. He rushed past her and out the door. His heart was racing as he walked quickly down the corridor, then broke into a run. He didn't stop until he was back in the human section of the ship. In his small quarters, Jiho sat on his bed and tried to calm down. His hands were shaking. Why did that alien have his photo? Why were there research notes around it? Who was she? He pulled out his personal tablet and accessed the ship's crew directory. It took him a few minutes, but he found her. Her name was Hana. She was listed as a high-ranking diplomat from the Valerian Empire. Her official role was trade negotiation, but Jiho knew what he had seen. Those weren't trade documents on her wall. That was surveillance, research. She had been watching him. Maybe for years the question was, why? Jiho lay back on his bed staring at the ceiling. He should report this to someone. His supervisor, ship security, someone. But what would he say? An alien diplomat has my photo on her wall. They would think he was crazy. Or paranoid. And if Hana really was watching him for some reason, reporting it might make things worse. No, he needed to find out more first. He needed to understand what was happening before he made any moves. Jiho closed his eyes, but he knew he wouldn't sleep tonight. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that wall. His photo. The research notes. Hana's shocked face, something was very wrong, and somehow he was at the center of it. In her quarters, Hana stood in front of the wall staring at Jiho's photograph. Her hands were trembling slightly, something that hadn't happened to her in decades. Valerians didn't tremble. They didn't feel fear or panic. They had evolved past such primitive emotions, but right now, Hana felt both. He had seen. After 3 years of careful observation, after all her precautions, Jiho had walked right into her quarters and seen everything. This changed everything. The mission, the timeline, her plans. She touched the photograph gently. Jiho didn't know it yet, but his life was about to become very complicated. And Hana wasn't sure if she could protect him from what was coming. She had to decide quickly. Report the breach to her superiors or handle this herself. Either way, everything had just changed. Jiho couldn't stop thinking about the photo. 3 days had passed since he stumbled into Hana's quarters, and every moment felt strange. He kept looking over his shoulder, expecting to see her watching him. Sometimes he did. She was always there, in the cafeteria when he ate breakfast, in the corridor when he walked to his shift, in the observation deck when he tried to relax after work. She never approached him. She just watched. Those black Valerian eyes following his every move. It was driving him crazy. You look terrible, Taeyang said, sitting down across from Jiho in the cafeteria. Taeyang was a linguist, one of the few other humans on the ship. He was Jiho's only real friend aboard the Harmony Dawn. I haven't been sleeping well, Jiho muttered, pushing his food around his plate. I can see that. What's wrong? Taeyang leaned forward, concerned. You've been acting weird for days, Jiho wanted to tell him. He wanted to tell someone, but how could he explain without sounding insane? It's nothing. Just stress from work. Taeyang didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. Instead, he changed the subject. Did you hear about the Valerians? Jiho's head snapped up. What about them? Apparently, they've been really interested in humans lately. Like studying us. There are rumors that they've been monitoring Earth for years. Before official first contact even happened. Jiho's blood ran cold. Where did you hear that? Around. You know how it is on a ship like this? Everyone gossips. Taeyang took a bite of his food. The other species don't trust the Valerians much. They're too secretive, too advanced. Some people think they have hidden agendas. Jiho thought about Hana's wall. All those documents. The research notes. Why would they study humans? Taeyang shrugged. Who knows? Maybe they think we're interesting. Or dangerous. Humans have a reputation in the galaxy, you know. What kind of reputation? Unpredictable. Most alien species are very logical, very organized. But humans? We're all over the place. We make decisions based on feelings. We take risks that don't make sense. Apparently that scares some of them. Jiho processed this information slowly. Maybe that was why Hana had his photo. Maybe he was part of some larger study of human behavior. But why him specifically? He wasn't special. He was just an engineer. Hey, isn't that her? Taeyang nodded toward the cafeteria entrance. Jiho turned. Hana had just entered. She was wearing elegant robes that seemed to shimmer when she moved. Several other diplomats were with her, but her eyes found Jiho immediately. For a long moment they stared at each other across the crowded room. Then Hana looked away and continued to a table on the far side. "Do you know her?" Taeyang asked, surprised. "Not really. I've seen her around. She was definitely looking at you. Weird." Taeyang went back to his food, but Jiho had lost his appetite completely. He needed answers. This couldn't continue. That night, Jiho made a decision. He was going to investigate Hana just like she had investigated him. He accessed the ship's public database and started searching. Hana was part of something called the Valerian Intelligence Assembly. That sounded official and scary. Her record showed she had been working in diplomatic roles for 15 years. But before that, her history was classified. Jiho dug deeper, using some of the security clearances his maintenance position gave him. He found travel records. Hana had visited Earth twice, once 8 years ago, once 5 years ago. Both visits were listed as cultural research, but Earth's official first contact with aliens had only happened 4 years ago. Hana had been on Earth before humans even knew aliens existed. Jiho's heart pounded. This was bigger than he thought. He kept searching and found more disturbing information. Other Valerians had also visited Earth before first contact. At least 20 of them, all listed as researchers or observers. They had been watching humanity for years, studying them. And no one on Earth knew. A message popped up on his screen. "Stop searching. You're drawing attention." Jiho jumped, looking around his small quarters. He was alone. The message had come through his terminal. He checked the sender. It was anonymous, but the message had a Valerian signature code. Hana, before he could respond, his door chimed. Someone was outside. Jiho's mind raced. Should he answer? What if it was security? What if his searching had triggered some alarm? The door chimed again. He took a deep breath and opened it. Hana stood in the corridor, alone. She looked different than before. Less composed, almost nervous. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "I have nothing to say to you." Jiho started to close the door, but Hana put her hand against it. "Please, I know you're searching for information about me, about my people. You need to stop before someone else notices." "Why? What are you hiding?" Hana glanced down the corridor. "Not here. Let me come in. Just for a few minutes. I'll explain everything." Every instinct told Jiho to say no, but his curiosity was stronger. He stepped aside. Hana entered quickly. The door closed behind her. She stood in the center of his small room, looking around with those unsettling black eyes. "Why do you have my photo?" Jiho demanded. "Why have you been watching me?" "It's complicated." "Then simplify it." Hana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. "My people have been studying humans for 12 years. We found something. A warning left by an ancient alien race. They called themselves the predecessors. What kind of warning? A prophecy. About a young species that would either save the galaxy or destroy it. When we analyzed the prophecy's description, only one species matched: humans." Jiho laughed, but it came out bitter. "You're saying humans are special? That's ridiculous. We can barely organize our own planet. That's exactly what makes you special. Every other species in the galaxy evolved to be efficient, logical, predictable. But humans are chaos. You solve problems in ways that make no sense, yet somehow they work. You feel things deeply and let those feelings guide your decisions. You're completely unpredictable, and that scares you." "Yes." Hana met his eyes. "And fascinates us. My assignment was to observe humans who showed the strongest expression of these traits. You were one of 50 subjects selected. Why me? Because in your 3 years at the Engineering Academy, you solved 17 problems that your professor said were impossible. You used methods that violated standard procedure, but achieved results anyway. You don't follow rules, you follow intuition." Jiho didn't know what to say. He had never thought of himself that way. 3 weeks ago, Hana continued, something happened. Deep space monitoring stations detected star systems going silent. Not destroyed, silent, as if they simply stopped existing. What does that have to do with me? The prophecy says only the chaos species can stop it. Only humans can hear what others cannot hear. My superiors want to bring you and the other subjects to Valaria for study, to understand how your minds work so we can replicate it. The way she said study made Jiho's skin crawl. What kind of study? Hana looked away. Invasive, dangerous, you might not survive it. And you were going to let this happen? I was following orders, but then I spent 3 years watching you, watching all of you. I saw things my people have forgotten. Kindness, friendship, hope. You humans feel so much, and you let those feelings make you stronger instead of weaker. Hana turned back to him. I can't do this anymore. I won't be part of destroying what I've come to admire. That's why I'm warning you. Warning me about what? A Valerian ship will arrive in 6 days to collect the human subjects. You need to leave before then. Go back to Earth, hide. Jiho shook his head. If I run, they'll just find someone else. And what about these silent star systems? If the prophecy is real, running away won't help. What else can you do? Help me investigate. Work with me instead of studying me. If humans are supposed to stop this thing, maybe it's not about our biology. Maybe it's about how we think, how we work together. Hana stared at him like he had suggested something impossible. You want to work with me? After everything I've done? You came here to warn me. That counts for something. For the first time, Jiho saw something like hope in Hana's expression. My people will call this treason. Then I guess we'll both be criminals. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll help you. But we'll need others. Humans and aliens working together. I know some people we can trust. They talked for hours, forming a plan. It was risky and probably stupid, but it was better than giving up. When Hana finally left, Jiho sat alone in his quarters. His life had just become incredibly complicated, but for the first time in days he felt like he had some control. Tomorrow they would start building their team. And maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to stop the silence before it swallowed the galaxy. Jiho met Taeyang in the observation deck early the next morning. The room was empty except for the two of them and the endless stars visible through the massive windows. You said this was urgent, Taeyang said, yawning. This better be good. I was actually sleeping for once. I need your help. And I need you to trust me, even if what I'm about to say sounds crazy. Taeyang's expression became serious. Okay, I'm listening. Jiho told him everything. The photo, Hana's confession, the prophecy, the silent star systems, all of it. He watched his friend's face go through surprise, disbelief, and finally anger. They've been studying us? Like lab rats? Taeyang stood up, pacing. And they want to take you for experiments? That's not the important part right now. The important part is that something is making entire star systems disappear, and we might be able to help stop it. We? Jiho, we're not soldiers. We're not heroes. I translate languages and you fix air vents. I know, but Hana thinks humans have something other species don't. A way of thinking that might be the key to understanding what's happening. Taeyang stopped pacing. And you trust her? After she admitted to spying on you for 3 years? She didn't have to warn me. She could have let them take me. But she chose to help instead. That has to mean something. Taeyang rubbed his face. This is insane. You know that, right? Completely insane. Good, just making sure we're on the same page. Taeyang sat back down. What do you need me to do? Jiho smiled. Help me put together a team. We need people we can trust, humans and aliens. We're going to investigate the silent zones ourselves. That's even more insane than I thought, but I'm in. I also need you to find Nari. Nari was a human astrophysicist who worked in the ship's research division. Jiho had met her a few times and knew she was brilliant. If anyone could make sense of the scientific data, it would be her. Taeyang found Nari in one of the research labs. She was studying star charts when they approached her. She listened to their explanation without interrupting, her sharp eyes moving between Jiho and Taeyang. Show me the data on these silent systems, she said finally. Hana had given Jiho a data chip with everything the Valerians knew about the phenomenon. Nari plugged it into her terminal and started reading. Her frown deepened with every page. This is impossible, she muttered. Stars don't just stop existing. There's always evidence, radiation, debris, something. But, Jiho prompted. But this shows absolutely nothing. It's like someone cut these systems out of reality with scissors. Nari looked up. If this data is accurate, we're dealing with something that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of physics. So you'll help us? Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Yes, but we need better equipment than what's on this ship. And we need to actually go to one of these silent zones. That was the dangerous part. Hana had arranged access to a small diplomatic shuttle. It was old and didn't have many weapons, but it would get them to the nearest silent zone. The problem was stealing it without anyone noticing. Hana brought 2 more people to the team. Kavik was another Valerian, an engineer who had been working with Hana on the Human Observation Project. He was quiet and serious, but Hana trusted him completely. The other was Sova, a member of the Thurin species. The Thurin were strange beings that looked almost human, except for their pale blue skin and complete lack of hair. What made them truly unusual was that they were a hive mind. Every Thurin was connected to every other Thurin across the galaxy. They shared thoughts and memories instantly. Why do we need a hive mind? Jiho asked Hana privately. Because Sova can process information in ways neither humans nor Valerians can. They think collectively. They see patterns we miss. The team of 6 met in a storage bay late at night. It was the first time they were all together. The tension was obvious. Humans and aliens standing on opposite sides of the room, eyeing each other with suspicion. This isn't going to work if we don't trust each other, Jiho said, breaking the silence. Trust is earned, Kavik replied. His voice was cold, typical of Valerians. Why should we trust humans who don't even trust their own governments? Why should we trust Valerians who've been spying on us for years? Taeyang shot back. Both of you stop, Hana said firmly. We're here because the normal approach isn't working. Valerian logic can't solve this problem. Human chaos alone can't either. We need each other. Sova spoke for the first time. Their voice was odd, like multiple people speaking in perfect unison. The collective agrees with Hana. Division will lead to failure. Unity offers possibility. Nari stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display. Look at this. These are the patterns of the silent zones spreading across the galaxy. Do you see it? They all studied the map. The silent zones were spreading in a spiral pattern, slowly moving inward toward more populated space. It's not random, Nari continued. There's intelligence behind this. Whatever is causing it, it's choosing its targets deliberately. What's it targeting? Jiho asked. Communication hubs, systems with the most advanced technology. The most connected civilizations, Nari highlighted several systems. If this continues, it will reach the core worlds in 3 months. That includes Earth, Valeria, and Thurin Prime. The room went quiet. 3 months, Taeyang whispered. That's not much time. Which is why we need to leave now, Hana said. The shuttle is ready. I've programmed it to look like a routine diplomatic supply run. We'll have maybe 48 hours before someone realizes we're not coming back. And then what? Kavik asked. We become fugitives? We become people who did the right thing instead of the safe thing, Jiho answered. They gathered their supplies. Food, water, medical equipment, and what few weapons they could smuggle aboard. Hana had also brought data cores containing everything the Valerians knew about the predecessors and their prophecy. As they loaded the shuttle, Sova approached Jiho. The collective has a question. Why do you believe you can succeed where entire governments have failed? Jiho thought about it. I don't know if we can, but I know that sitting around waiting for someone else to fix this isn't an option. Sometimes you have to try even if the odds are terrible. This is very human thinking, Sova observed. Illogical but compelling. That pretty much sums up our species. The shuttle was cramped with 6 of them aboard. Nari took the pilot's seat with Kavik as co-pilot. They were the best navigators. The others strapped into the passenger seats. Last chance to back out, Hana said, looking at each of them. No one moved. All right then, let's go find out what's eating the galaxy. The shuttle launched smoothly. For the first few hours, everything went according to plan. They left the Harmony Dawn without raising any alarms. The ship's security systems showed their departure as a scheduled supply run. But Jiho couldn't shake the feeling that this was the easy part. They were heading toward a system called Karathi 7. It had gone silent 5 days ago. Before the silence, it was home to a mining colony with 30,000 people. Now there was just empty space where it should be. How long until we arrive? Taeyang asked. 18 hours, Nari replied. I'm keeping our speed moderate. Going too fast might attract attention. Jiho tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought about what they might find. Or not find. Hana sat down next to him. You're worried. Of course I'm worried. We're flying towards something that made an entire star system disappear. That's pretty worrying. You could have run. Gone back to Earth. Hidden. You could have followed orders and turned me over to your superiors. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Why did you really choose to help me? Jiho asked. You said you admired humans, but that seems like a small reason for treason. Hana was quiet for a long time. Because I spent 3 years watching you and the others. I saw how you treat each other. The kindness you show even to strangers. The way you choose hope even when logic says there is none. My people evolved past emotions because we thought they made us weak. But watching humans, I realized we lost something important. What did you lose? The ability to care about things that don't benefit us directly. Valerians are efficient, but we're also cold. We make perfect calculations but terrible friends. Hana looked at him. You make me want to be better than what my species has become. Jiho didn't know what to say to that. So he just reached out and squeezed her hand. Hana looked surprised, then smiled slightly. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her. We're approaching the boundary, Nari called out. Everyone strap in. I don't know what we're about to encounter. The team secured themselves. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see the edge of where Karathi 7 should be. There was nothing obviously wrong. Just stars and empty space. Then their instruments started going crazy. Sensors flickered. Communication scrambled. The ship's lights dimmed and brightened randomly. What's happening? Taeyang asked. I don't know, Kavik said, his voice tense. The readings don't make sense. It's like reality itself is malfunctioning. Sova suddenly gasped. The collective. I can feel them, but the connection is wrong. I'm receiving thoughts from bodies that are light years away, but they're arriving before I think them. Time is confused. Jiho felt it too. A strange pressure in his head. Like something was pressing against his mind, trying to get in. And then he heard it. A whisper in a language he didn't understand. But somehow, underneath the alien words, he felt emotion. Loneliness, desperation, fear. There's something her. The shuttle shook violently. Alarms blared from every console. Nari fought with the controls, trying to keep them stable. I'm losing navigation, she shouted over the noise. The instruments are showing 3 different locations at once. Impossible, Kavik said. But his voice wavered. His Valerian training told him this couldn't happen, but his instruments showed it was happening anyway. Jiho pressed his hands against his head. The pressure was getting worse. The whispers were louder now, filling his mind with sounds that weren't quite words. He could feel emotions washing over him in waves. Loneliness so deep it hurt. Fear so ancient it felt like gravity. Jiho, what's wrong? Taeyang grabbed his friend's shoulder. I can hear it. The silence. It's not silence at all. It's screaming. Sova's eyes were wide, their blue skin turning almost white. The collective is panicking. My other selves can feel what's happening here. They're terrified. Everyone calm down, Hana ordered. But even she looked shaken. Nari, get us out of here. I'm trying. The ship won't respond properly. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The shaking ceased. The alarms went quiet. The instruments stabilized. They floated in space, surrounded by stars that seemed normal again. What just happened? Taeyang asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jiho slowly lowered his hands from his head. The pressure was gone, but he could still feel the echo of those emotions. That desperate need to communicate. We touched the edge of it, he said. Whatever the silence is, we just made contact. Nari checked their position. We're still at the boundary of where Karathi 7 should be. But look, she brought up a visual scan. Ahead of them, space looked wrong. It was hard to describe. The stars were there, but they seemed twisted. Light bent in ways that hurt to look at. Reality itself seemed thin, like cloth stretched too tight. The mining colony was in the center of that. Kavik said quietly. 30,000 people. Are they dead? Taeyang asked. I don't think so, Jiho said. Everyone turned to look at him. When I heard the whispers, I felt something. Confusion, like it doesn't understand what it's doing. I think it's trying to reach out, but every time it does, it pulls things into wherever it exists. That's a theory, Nari said carefully. But we need proof. Then let's go closer. Are you insane? Kavik stood up. We barely survived touching the edge. Going deeper could destroy us. Or it could give us answers, Jiho countered. Isn't that why we came here? Hana stood between them. Jiho is right. We came for answers. But Kavik is also right. We need to be careful. Nari, can you get us closer without entering the affected area completely? Nari studied her instruments. Maybe I can approach slowly. If things start going wrong again, I'll pull back immediately. Do it. The shuttle moved forward cautiously. Everyone was tense, waiting for the instruments to fail again. But this time they stayed stable. They got closer to the distorted area of space. Through the windows, they could see it more clearly now. Reality was folded in on itself, creating patterns that were beautiful and terrifying, colors that shouldn't exist, shapes that hurt the mind to comprehend. I'm reading something, Nari said suddenly. There are structures in there. Intact structures. The colony? Taeyang leaned forward. I think so. The buildings are still there. I can't tell if there are people, but the colony wasn't destroyed. It was moved, or pulled into something. Jiho felt the pressure returning to his head, but gentler this time. The whispers came back, but now he tried to listen instead of fighting them. He closed his eyes and let the sounds wash over him. Emotions flooded through him. Loneliness, yes. Fear, yes. But also something else. Curiosity, hope. A desperate need for connection. It's trying to communicate, Jiho said softly. It has been for a long time. But it doesn't know how. Every species it encounters can't understand it. And when it reaches out too hard, it pulls them into its realm. How do you know this? Hana asked. I can feel it. Like an emotion, but from something that isn't quite alive. Not in the way we understand life, Sova spoke up. The collective has accessed historical records. There are stories of something called the predecessors, an ancient species that tried to evolve beyond physical form. They wanted to become pure consciousness existing between dimensions. The stories say they succeeded, but the transformation was incomplete. They became trapped between realities. That matches what I'm feeling, Jiho said. It's stuck, neither fully here nor fully somewhere else, and it's been alone for so long. If what you're saying is true, Kavik said slowly, then the silence isn't an attack. It's a cry for help. A very dangerous cry for help, Nari added. It's still pulling entire civilizations into its realm. Intent doesn't matter if the result is the same. So how do we stop it? Taeyang asked. They all looked at each other. No one had an answer. Jiho stood up and walked to the window. He stared at the twisted space ahead. Somewhere in there, 30,000 people were trapped. Across the galaxy, 700 star systems were gone. Millions of lives hanging in a place between realities. We need to communicate with it, Jiho said. Really communicate. Find a way to understand what it wants and how to help it stop. How? Hana asked. The best Valerian telepaths have tried to make contact with anomalies like this. They all failed. Because Valerian minds are too structured, too logical. This thing exists outside logic. Jiho turned to face them. The prophecy said only humans could hear what cannot be heard. Maybe that's because human minds are chaotic enough to understand something that doesn't follow rules. You want to let it into your mind directly, Kavik said. It wasn't a question. Yes, that's suicide. Probably. But what's the alternative? We can't just leave all those people trapped. And we can't stop this thing from spreading without understanding it. Hana stepped closer to Jiho. I won't let you die for this. You might not have a choice. They argued for hours. Kavik said the risk was too high. Taeyang agreed. Even Sova's collective consensus was that Jiho's plan was too dangerous, but Nari saw the logic in it. If we don't try something, the silence will eventually reach our home worlds. Earth, Valeria, Thurin Prime. Billions of people pulled into that void. At least this way we have a chance. A tiny chance, Kavik corrected. Better than no chance. Eventually they agreed to try, but with precautions. Hana would use her telepathic abilities to monitor Jiho's mind. If things went wrong, she would try to pull him back. Sova would provide a distributed consciousness anchor, using their hive mind connection to help ground Jiho's thoughts. Nari would monitor all the scientific readings. Kavik and Taeyang would be ready to pull the shuttle back if necessary. They prepared for 2 hours. Hana taught Jiho basic mental techniques to protect his core consciousness. Sova established a light connection with Jiho's mind, just enough to maintain contact without overwhelming him. Are you ready? Hana asked. Jiho wasn't, but he nodded anyway. He sat in the center of the shuttle, eyes closed. Hana placed her hand on his shoulder. Her telepathic abilities activated, creating a link between their minds. I'm with you, she said softly. You're not alone. Jiho took a deep breath. Then he opened his mind to the silence. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. His consciousness suddenly expanded, stretching across dimensions he couldn't see but could feel. The whispers became a roar. Emotions crashed over him like ocean waves. Loneliness, fear, hope, desperation, confusion. And beneath it all, A question that had been asked for thousands of years with no answer. Can anyone hear me? Jiho wanted to scream. The pressure was enormous. His mind wasn't built for this. No human mind was. He could feel himself starting to fragment, pieces of his consciousness drifting away into the void. But then he felt Hana. Her presence in his mind was cool and structured, like a lighthouse in a storm. She was anchoring him, keeping him together. And Sova. Their hive-mind connection spread out like a safety net, catching the pieces of Jiho that tried to drift away. With their help, Jiho stabilized. The pain lessened. He could think again. He reached out through the connection not with words but with emotion, with understanding. With empathy. I hear you, he thought. You're not alone anymore. The response was immediate. The entity, whatever it was, surged toward him. Not attacking, reaching. Desperate for connection after millennia of isolation. Jiho saw things, memories that weren't his own. He saw an ancient civilization at the height of their power. The predecessors. They had been so advanced, so confident. They thought they could transcend physical form and become something greater. They were wrong. The transformation worked, but only partially. They became trapped between dimensions, neither fully physical nor fully energy. Unable to return to normal reality, but unable to leave it either. For thousands of years, they called out, hoping someone would hear. But every species they encountered thought in ways too rigid to understand. The predecessors couldn't speak in logic or mathematics or any normal language. They existed in chaos and emotion in the spaces between thoughts. And when they reached out, trying desperately to make contact, their desperation pulled civilizations into the void. With Hana felt Jiho dying. Through their telepathic link, she could sense his consciousness fragmenting. His body was shutting down from the strain of holding the connection to the entity. We're losing him, she said, her voice tight with fear. It was an emotion she wasn't supposed to feel. Valerians didn't fear, but she did. She was terrified. Jiho, Taeyang shouted, reaching for his friend. But Jiho's body was rigid, locked in place by forces beyond their understanding. Don't break the connection, Nari warned. If we pull him out now, the shock could kill him. If we don't, he'll die anyway, Kavik said. Sova's eyes were closed, their face twisted in concentration. The collective is holding his consciousness together, but we cannot sustain this much longer. His human mind is too fragile for this burden. Hana made a decision. If Jiho couldn't hold the connection alone, then he wouldn't have to. She deepened her telepathic link, pouring more of her own consciousness into the bridge. The effect was immediate and painful. The chaos of the entity's thoughts crashed into her ordered Valerian mind like a tsunami hitting a wall. But she held. Valerian minds were structured for exactly this kind of discipline. She couldn't understand the entity the way Jiho did, but she could provide structure, organization, a framework to contain the chaos. What are you doing? Kavik demanded, sharing the burden. Jiho can translate the emotions, but he needs help organizing them. Hana gritted her teeth against the pain. I can't understand the entity alone, and Jiho can't survive the connection alone. Together, we might manage both. The change was immediate. Through their combined consciousness, Jiho felt Hana's presence not just as an anchor anymore, but as a partner. Her structured thoughts gave shape to the chaos he was experiencing. His emotional understanding gave meaning to the patterns she could sense. Together, they could see more clearly. The entity wasn't one being. It was millions. An entire civilization trapped between dimensions. Their consciousness merged into something neither individual nor truly collective. They had been calling out for so long that they had forgotten what they were calling for. They just knew they were alone and desperate for connection. But even with Hana's help, the strain was enormous. Shiro could feel his body failing faster now. Minutes, maybe seconds left. Through the haze of pain, he heard Sova speak. If 2 minds can share this burden better than 1, perhaps 6 minds can share it better than 2. What? Taeyang looked at the Thurin. You want us all to connect? The collective suggests this is the optimal solution. Humans provide chaos and emotional understanding. Valerians provide structure and discipline. Thurin provide distributed processing and connection. Each species contributes what others lack. I don't have telepathic abilities, Nari protested. You don't need them. Hana can create the link. You need only accept it. Kavik stepped forward. This is dangerous. Linking multiple minds from different species has never been done. The mental feedback could destroy all of us. Jiho is already dying, Hana said through gritted teeth. This is our only chance. Kavik was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Do it. Hana reached out with her telepathic abilities, creating links to each team member. One by one, they joined the connection. Taeyang entered the link and immediately felt overwhelmed. The chaos of emotions, the structured thoughts, the distributed processing of Sova's hive mind all crashing together. But beneath the chaos, he felt his friend, Jiho, dying but still fighting. Taeyang added his own strength to the connection, his loyalty and determination helping to anchor Jiho's consciousness. Nari came next. Her scientific mind brought clarity. She couldn't understand the entity emotionally like Jiho, or structure it like Hana, but she could analyze patterns. She could see the mathematical reality underlying the chaos. She brought logic to balance emotion. Kavik joined last, reluctant but committed. His Valerian precision added another layer of structure. With two Valerian minds in the link, the framework became stronger, more stable, and Sova's hive mind connection spread like a web, linking them all together in ways that shouldn't be possible. They remained individuals, but they could feel each other, understand each other. Together they were something new, something that had never existed before. The entity felt the change too. Instead of one fragile human consciousness reaching out, it now felt 6 minds working in harmony. Different species, different ways of thinking, but united. The entity responded with something like joy. Through the combined consciousness, they all experienced what Jiho had learned. The history of the predecessors. Their failed transformation, their millennia of loneliness, their desperate attempts to connect that accidentally pulled civilizations into the void, but they also learned something new. The predecessors weren't trying to trap people. They were trying to share knowledge. In their dimension between realities, they had learned things. Secrets of the universe, technologies beyond imagination, warnings about threats yet to come. They had been trying to give this knowledge to others, but the transfer required a connection that no single species could maintain. The strain was too great, so civilizations were pulled into the void, trapped in the space between dimensions because the connection couldn't complete. We need to help them, Jiho thought through the link. Not just stop them. Help them. How? Multiple voices asked at once. The link made it hard to tell who was speaking. They need to complete the transfer, share their knowledge properly. Then they can rest. They can finally let go. But the transfer requires a stable connection, Hana thought. One that can handle the full weight of their consciousness without breaking. We have that now, Sova observed. 6 minds. 6 species. Working together. If we accept their knowledge, we accept the risk, Kavik warned. This could still destroy us. Or it could save the galaxy, Nari countered. The predecessors have been watching reality for thousands of years. They might know things we desperately need. They didn't vote. They didn't argue. Through the link, they simply understood each other's positions. Each person's fears and hopes were laid bare. There were no secrets, no hidden agendas. In the end, they chose together. We're ready, Jiho thought to the entity. Share with us. We'll listen. The transfer began. Information flooded into their linked consciousness. Sciences that explained how reality itself functioned. Technologies that could reshape matter and energy. History stretching back billions of years. Warnings about cosmic threats that sleep between the stars. The predecessors showed them everything they had learned in their millennia of existence between dimensions, and the 6 minds worked together to process it all. Jiho received the emotional weight of the knowledge, the meaning and purpose behind it. Hana and Kavik structured the information, organizing it into frameworks their conscious minds could later access. Nari analyzed the scientific principles, translating alien concepts into universal mathematics. Taeyang processed the linguistic and cultural context, understanding the meaning behind the data. Sova distributed the processing load across their hive mind, preventing any single consciousness from being overwhelmed. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt strange in the link, but slowly the transfer completed. The predecessors had shared everything. Their purpose was fulfilled. Through the link, they felt the entity's relief, its joy. After millennia of desperate isolation, it had finally connected. Finally been heard, finally shared its burden. Thank you, the entity thought, not in words but in pure emotion. Gratitude so deep it made them all want to cry. What happens to you now? Jiho asked. We can rest. We can finally let go. We held on only to share what we knew. Now that task is complete. The people you pulled into the void, the civilizations trapped with you, they will return. We could not release them before without completing the transfer. But now we can. They will wake in their homes confused but unharmed, as if no time has passed. Will you disappear? Not disappear. Transform. We will finally complete what we started so long ago. We will become pure consciousness truly beyond physical reality, no longer trapped between. We will be free. Will we ever hear from you again? When you need us most. We will be watching, waiting. The knowledge we gave you includes how to call us. Use it wisely. And thank you, young species. You gave us what we needed. Connection, understanding, peace. The presence began to fade. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see the twisted space starting to normalize. Reality was healing itself, and across the galaxy, in 700 star systems, people were waking up, confused, afraid, but alive. The entity's last thought echoed through the link. You are the bridge between worlds. Remember this. Greater threats are coming. You will need each other. Then it was gone. The predecessors had finally completed their transformation, finally found peace. The mental link between the 6 team members began to dissolve, gently this time, each consciousness returning to its own body. Jiho opened his eyes. He was lying on the shuttle floor. His entire body hurt. Every muscle screamed in agony, but he was alive. Hana was beside him, her hand still on his shoulder. She looked exhausted, her usually perfect composure completely gone. But she was smiling. Around them, the others were recovering. Taiyang was sitting with his head in his hands. Nari was checking the Harmony Dawn was waiting for them. As their shuttle approached, Nari picked up multiple signals. Security ships had surrounded the diplomatic vessel, armed and ready. They know we took the shuttle, Kavik said. They've been tracking us. Of course they have, Hana replied calmly. I knew they would. The question is what they'll do when we return. Arrest us, Taiyang said. Obviously. Maybe not, Nari interjected. She was monitoring communications. The silent zones are gone. All of them. 700 star systems just came back online simultaneously. Every government in the galaxy is scrambling to understand what happened. They'll want answers, Sova observed. We have those answers. That might buy us some time, Jiho said. But not much. We still stole a shuttle and violated about 50 different laws. As they docked, security teams were waiting. Armed guards from 3 different species surrounded them the moment they stepped off the shuttle. A Valerian commander stepped forward, her expression cold. You are all under arrest for theft, unauthorized departure, and violation of diplomatic protocols. Surrender your weapons and come quietly. They had no weapons to surrender. The guards still searched them thoroughly before placing restraints on their wrists. The restraints were energy-based, humming softly. Impossible to break, they were separated. Jiho was taken to a holding cell in the human section of the ship. It was small and white and completely empty except for a bench. He sat down and waited. Hours passed. No one came. No food, no water. No information. Jiho tried to access the knowledge the predecessors had given him, but his mind felt foggy. The transfer had happened while they were linked. Now separated and alone, he could only remember fragments, pieces of information that didn't quite make sense without the others. That was probably intentional. The predecessors had given the knowledge to all 6 of them together. No single person could access it all. They would need each other. Finally, the cell door opened. A human official entered, followed by guards. The official was older, with gray hair and hard eyes. She wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. I'm Director Park, she said, sitting across from Jiho. Do you understand how much trouble you're in? Yes. Good, then you'll cooperate with our investigation. What investigation? 700 star systems went dark and then came back. Millions of people experienced simultaneous unconsciousness. And during this crisis, you and 5 others stole a diplomatic shuttle and flew into one of the affected zones. Director Park leaned forward. So you're going to tell me everything? What you saw, what you did, how you survived, Jiho thought carefully. I'll tell you. But I need to speak with my team. The information is spread between all 6 of us. You won't get the full story without everyone together. That's not how interrogations work. This isn't a normal situation. The knowledge we gained was transferred to all of us together. We can't access it all separately. It's like having pieces of a puzzle. You need all the pieces to see the full picture. Director Park studied him for a long moment. Then she stood. I'll discuss this with the other governments. But don't get your hopes up. You're facing serious charges. She left. Jiho was alone again. 2 more days passed. Jiho was given food and water, but no information. He tried to stay calm, but worry gnawed at him. Were the others okay? Were they being interrogated separately? What was happening? On the 3rd day, the cell door opened again. This time, guards gestured for him to follow. They led him through the ship's corridors to a large conference room. The others were already there. Taeyang, Nari, Hana, Kavik, and Sova, all wearing energy restraints, all looking tired but unharmed. Relief flooded through Jiho. They were okay. The conference room was filled with officials, representatives from Earth, Valeria, Thurin, and 9 other species. The entire Galactic Council was here. This was bigger than Jiho had realized. A Valerian official stood. Jiho recognized her from news broadcasts. High Counselor Mira, one of the most powerful people in the Valerian Empire. You 6 have caused quite a disturbance, she said, her voice cold. Theft, insubordination, violation of numerous treaties. The list of charges is extensive. We saved millions of lives, Hana replied. Her voice was steady despite the restraints. The silent zones are gone. The trapped civilizations are free. A fortunate outcome, but that doesn't excuse your methods. You acted without authorization. You put yourselves and others at risk. We did what no one else could, Jiho spoke up. The governments were debating and planning while people were dying. We took action. Reckless action, a human official countered. You're lucky you survived. We survived because we worked together, Nari said. 6 people. 6 species. We accomplished what entire governments couldn't, the counselors murmured among themselves. Jiho could see they were torn. On one hand, the team had broken serious laws. On the other, they had solved a galaxy-wide crisis. High Counselor Mira raised her hand for silence. Before we decide on punishment, we need answers. What exactly happened out there? How did you stop the phenomenon? The team looked at each other. Through brief eye contact, they communicated silently. Then Hana spoke. We made contact with the silence. It wasn't an attack. It was an attempt at communication by an ancient species called the predecessors. She explained everything. The failed transformation, the millennia of isolation, the desperate attempts to connect that accidentally trapped civilizations. The knowledge transfer that required multiple species working together. The counselors listened in stunned silence. When Hana finished, a Thurin counselor spoke. You claim this entity gave you knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Science is beyond our current understanding, Nari replied. Technologies that could advance civilization by centuries. Historical records dating back billions of years. And warnings about future threats. What threats? Sova answered, their voice echoing with their hive-mind connection. The predecessors watched reality for thousands of years. They saw patterns, cycles. They warned us that cosmic threats sleep between the stars. Some will wake soon. The room erupted in conversation. Officials arguing, questioning, demanding proof. Silence, High Counselor Mira commanded. If what you say is true, we need this knowledge. Can you share it? Yes and no, Kavik said. The knowledge was transferred to all 6 of us together. We each hold pieces, but we can only access the full information when we work as a team. It was designed that way deliberately. Why? To force cooperation, Jiho explained. The predecessor's final lesson. No single species has all the answers. No individual can carry all the burden. We need each other. High Counselor Mira sat back thinking. The other counselors waited. Finally, she spoke. The charges against you will not be dropped. You broke laws that exist for good reasons. However, given the circumstances and the value of what you've accomplished, we propose an alternative to imprisonment. What alternative? Hana asked. You 6 will form an official team. A new division within the Galactic Council. Your mission will be to work together, using the knowledge you've gained to help prepare for the threats you mentioned. You'll also serve as proof that interspecies cooperation can achieve the impossible. We'd still be criminals, Taeyang pointed out. You'd be criminals serving the greater good, with reduced sentences to be reviewed based on your contributions. Jiho looked at his team. They were tired, restrained, and facing uncertain futures, but they had done something impossible together. And according to the predecessors, they would need to do it again. We accept, they said together. The counselors seemed satisfied. But one voice spoke up from the back of the room. A human official Jiho didn't recognize. What about the Valerian secret program? The unauthorized observation of humans before first contact? That needs to be addressed. All eyes turned to High Counselor Mira. She looked uncomfortable for the first time. That program will be fully disclosed and shut down, she said stiffly. All human subjects will be notified and compensated. The Valerian Empire acknowledges this was a violation of protocol. A violation of protocol? Director Park stood up. You spied on Earth for years before revealing yourselves. You studied our people without consent. That's more than a violation. That's an act of aggression. It was a mistake, Mira admitted. Something Valerians rarely did. One we will rectify. The tension in the room was thick. Earth and Valeria had been allies, but this revelation damaged that relationship. Jiho stood up, his restraints clinking. May I speak? The officials looked surprised but nodded. What the Valerians did was wrong. I was one of the people they studied. I have every right to be angry, but I've also seen what happens when species refuse to work together. The silence consumed 700 star systems because no single species could understand it alone. We stopped it because humans, Valerians, and Thurin worked together. He looked around the room. The predecessors warned us. Greater threats are coming. We can spend our time punishing each other for past mistakes, or we can prepare for the future. Your choice. The room was quiet. Then Director Park nodded slowly. The boy has a point. We'll want full disclosure and reparations, but cooperation matters more than revenge. Other officials agreed. The political situation was still tense, but at least they were talking instead of fighting. The meeting ended with an agreement. The team 6 months had passed since the team stood trial. 6 months since they became the Coalition of Divergent Thought, the galaxy's first official interspecies problem-solving team. 6 months of hard work, strange discoveries, and learning to truly work together. Jiho stood in their new headquarters, a space station orbiting neutral territory between Earth and Valeria. It was smaller than the Harmony Dawn, but designed specifically for their needs. Labs for Nari, communication centers for Taeyang, engineering bays for Jiho and Kavik, meditation chambers for Hana's telepathic work, and connection nodes for Sova's hive mind. The walls of Jiho's quarters were covered with photos now. Not surveillance photos like Hana's old wall. These were memories. The team working together. Celebrations after successful projects, even a few awkward group dinners where they tried each other's food and mostly failed to enjoy it. Hana still had photos on her wall too. But now they included pictures of all of them together. And she smiled more. Valerians weren't supposed to smile often, but Hana had learned that some rules were meant to be broken. Jiho, you're daydreaming again. Taeyang called from the doorway. We have a meeting in 5 minutes. I'm coming. They walked together to the main conference room. The others were already there. Nari was reviewing data on her tablet. Kevik was checking systems. Sova's collective was quiet, probably communicating with their other selves across the galaxy. Hana was waiting patiently, her silver hair catching the light. Everyone's here, Hana said. Let's begin. Over the past 6 months, they had accomplished more than anyone expected. Using the knowledge from the predecessors, they had solved problems that had stumped scientists for decades. Nari and Kavik had developed a new form of faster-than-light communication. It was still experimental, but early tests were promising. Ships could now stay in contact across vast distances without the usual delays. Taeyang had created translation programs that worked not just on language but on concepts. Different species could now communicate more clearly, understanding not just words but the cultural context behind them. Sova's hive mind connection had become a galactic communication hub. They could coordinate between species that thought in completely different ways, finding common ground where none seemed to exist. And Jiho had been doing what he did best, fixing impossible problems with creative solutions. Just last week, he had repaired a colony's failing life support using parts that weren't designed to work together. The engineers had said it was impossible. Jiho did it anyway, but today's meeting was different. Today they had received a message. From the predecessors, Hana activated a holographic display. Strange symbols appeared in the air, shifting and changing. They looked like language, but also like art, like emotions given form. This arrived 2 hours ago, Hana explained. Sent through the communication channel the predecessors gave us. I've been translating it with Tai Yang's help. What does it say? Nari asked. It's a warning. And an invitation. The symbols rearranged themselves, forming images. They saw solar systems, planets, and something else. Something vast and dark moving between the stars. The predecessors said greater threats were coming. Kavik said quietly. Is this one of them? Yes, it's called the silence of a different kind. Not consciousness trapped between dimensions. This is something else, something older and far more dangerous. The images showed the thing moving through space. Wherever it went, stars dimmed. Not going dark like before, just becoming less bright. Slowly dying. What is it? Jiho asked. The predecessors call it a star eater. It's not alive, not in any way we understand. It's more like a force of nature, or unnature. It consumes stellar energy, draining stars over centuries. How long until it reaches populated space? Nari was already calculating. 3 years, maybe less. It's slow, but it doesn't stop. Ever. It's been moving through the galaxy for billions of years, following a pattern. Can it be destroyed? The predecessors don't think so. It's too massive, too old, but they think it might be possible to redirect it. Send it toward empty space where it can't harm anyone. How? They all asked together. Hana changed the display. More symbols appeared, forming equations and diagrams that made Nari's eyes light up with excitement. The predecessors designed a device, something that can create a gravitational anchor strong enough to pull the Star Eater off course. But building it requires knowledge and resources from multiple species. No single civilization can do it alone. Of course not, Taeyang said with a smile. That would be too easy. They spent hours reviewing the plans. The device was enormous. It would need to be built in deep space far from any solar system. It would require materials from dozens of worlds, technology from every major species, and coordination on a scale never attempted before. This is impossible, Kavik said, but he was smiling. Good thing we specialize in impossible. They presented the plan to the Galactic Council the next day. The reaction was mixed. Some counselors were skeptical. Others were afraid. A few were excited by the challenge. You're asking us to commit massive resources to build a device based on information from an entity we've never seen, one counselor argued. How do we know the predecessors are telling the truth? You don't, Jiho answered honestly. You have to trust us. We made contact with them. We received their knowledge. And that knowledge has already helped the galaxy in dozens of ways. Why would they lie about this? Because we don't understand their motives. Then come with us, Hana suggested. We're going to the location where the Star Eater is currently moving. We'll gather data, proof. Then you can decide if you believe us. After much debate, the council agreed, but with conditions. The team would have 2 months to gather proof. If they couldn't provide solid evidence, the project would be canceled. 2 months to find and study something billions of years old. No pressure. They took a new ship this time. Not a stolen shuttle, but a proper research vessel equipped with the best sensors available. A crew of volunteers from different species came with them. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers who believed in what the team was doing. The journey to the Star Eater's location took 3 weeks. As they got closer, their instruments started picking up strange readings. Space itself felt different here. Colder. Emptier. Then they saw it. The Star Eater wasn't a creature or a ship. It was a tear in space. A wound in reality itself, dark and endless. And it was feeding on a star, slowly draining its light. The star was dying. They could see it clearly. Its light was dimmer than it should be. Its surface was dark in places like bruises on reality. How long has it been feeding here? Ari asked. According to these readings, about 200 years. And it's almost done. In another 50 years, this star will be completely dark. Dead. They spent days gathering data, measurements, readings, observations, everything they could possibly need to prove the Star Eater was real and dangerous. But Jiho noticed something the sensors didn't show. The emptiness wasn't just physical. He could feel it. A void that wasn't about space but about existence itself. This thing didn't just eat stars. It ate possibility, hope, future. We need to stop it, he said quietly. We will, Hana replied. Together. They returned to the Galactic Council with their evidence. The readings were undeniable. The Star Eater was real, and it was heading toward populated space. The Council had no choice. They approved the project. What followed was the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. 30 species contributing resources, Hundreds of scientists working together, thousands of workers building in the darkness between stars. The team coordinated everything. Jiho solved engineering problems that arose daily. Nari designed systems that had never been attempted. Taeyang helped species communicate when cultural differences threatened to derail progress. Kevik managed the impossible logistics. Sova's hive mind provided instant communication across the entire project, and Hana used her diplomatic skills to keep everyone working together when tensions rose. It took 2 years. 2 years of constant work, setbacks, and small victories. But finally the device was complete. It floated in deep space, massive and beautiful. A ring of crystalline structures surrounding a core of pure energy. It hummed with power, creating gravitational waves that rippled through space itself. Activating in 3, 2, 1, Nari counted down. The device activated. Energy flowed through it, creating a gravitational anchor point in space. They had positioned it carefully, in a location that would pull the Star Eater toward empty space far from any inhabited systems. Now they waited. It would take months to know if it worked. The Star Eater moved slowly. 6 months later, they received confirmation. The Star Eater had changed course. Just slightly, but measurably. It was working. Over the next year, the device continued pulling. The Star Eater slowly turned, moving away from populated space. Moving toward the emptiness between galaxies where it could feed for eons without harming anyone. The galaxy celebrated. Not just because they were safe, but because they had accomplished something together. 30 species working as one, setting aside old rivalries and suspicions to face a common threat. The team stood in the observation deck of their station, watching the news broadcasts. Every species was celebrating in their own way. Humans were throwing parties. Valerians were composing mathematical symphonies.